Chengxian 2077 is a popular global fantasy-themed brain game with extremely fine game graphics and high degrees of freedom. It is Bai Ruo's favorite game. But she never expected to be trapped in the gaming world one day. And suffered significant weakening. No matter which world, the weak can only survive. But if we don't even leave the opportunity to barely survive for the weak, then this world should also change. I may not be worthy of being a good person, but I am skilled in being an evil person. Since this world does not allow good people to live, I will destroy it all and rebuild it. Keywords of the novel. Chengxian 2077 No pop-ups, Chengxian 2077 TXT Complete Collection Download, Chengxian 2077 Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Becoming Immortal 2077. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Becoming Immortal 2077 My legs hurt so much. Remove the fat from her legs bit by bit, as if someone is holding a knife to cut the meat. Even pigs have not experienced such pain while alive, have they? Bai Ruo almost couldn't help but curse the doctor who performed the surgery on him, but on second thought, it seemed more appropriate to curse the anesthesiologist. She still vaguely remembers being hit by a car on her way to work overtime at the company in the middle of the night. A dump truck hit her taxi from the side and flipped it 180 degrees in the air. No one came to save her in the middle of the night, so she climbed out of the car and called the police on her own. However, she was not sure what happened afterwards, but now it seems that she was in the hospital and woke up during the surgery due to the anesthesiologist's mistake. If Bai Ruo doesn't understand medicine very well, but has some common sense, he should quickly inform the doctor of the situation. But the body is not obedient, unable to make a sound, and unable to move, as if it has been crushed by a ghost. She tried very hard and finally managed to open her eyes. It's okay if you don't look at it. At first glance, she almost scared to death. Where is the doctor in front of me? It's a huge pig head. Still the kind of black-skinned wild boar with tusks that are 10 centimeters long. At this moment it was staring at Bai Ruo, and after seeing Bai Ruo blink, it opened its pig mouth and was about to bite Bai Ruo's face. That mouth is bigger than Bai Ruo's face. Sleeping slot. Probably really scared, Bai Ruo actually shouted out loud. This shout allowed her to regain control of her body. She rolled and dodged the wild boar's bloody mouth, then got up and wanted to run. But when she stepped out of her leg, she realized that her left leg had been eaten and only the skeleton remained. Skeleton. Skeleton. White as a blank head. In her dull moments, the wild boar had already rushed behind her and fiercely bumped towards her waist. Bai Ruo let out a scream uncontrollably, and his gaze quickly changed from flat to mid-air. The collision didn't hurt at all, it's just that I don't know why I could bump her into the sky. Still flying high. But thanks to it, Bai Ruo finally knew where he was. Nothing is more iconic than the huge full moon in the sky with a hint of blood on its wheels. The moon is not as big as a watermelon or a basin, it is a super invincible giant moon the size of a 10-person table. On the 13th day of the 13th lunar month every year, 2 such large moons can still be seen in the sky. In Chengxian 2077, there are 13 months in a year, and the 13th day of the 13 months is the Magic Carnival. The official name in the game is Double Month Same Day. But why did you suddenly enter the game? Bai Ruo felt inexplicable, but breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. In reality, she may encounter accidents when encountering wild boars, but in the game, she is not afraid of 100 of them. Before landing on the ground, she activated the skill of flying with the ring on her left ring finger. The body immediately lightened, and Bai Ruo floated in mid-air at a distance from the wild boar that it could not attack. If I remember correctly, this kind of monster that looks like a wild boar is called a pig hyena. This one has a slightly higher level and is twice as large as the average, about level 30. Did level 30 come to trouble level 100? Bai Ruo sneered and made a special gesture by raising his hand. In Chengxian 2077, custom actions can be used as buttons to use skills. Bai Ruo, because she is lazy and doesn't like martial arts actions that require significant body movements, designed a set of knots to simulate her favorite anime characters. With just a few gestures, she can activate the skills. The skill she is currently using is to summon one of the 4 elephants, the white tiger. A blue-eyed white tiger jumped out of the white gap that had cracked in the air upon being summoned. No matter how many times Bai Ruo looked at it, he believed that the appearance posture of the white tiger among the 4 elephants was the most handsome. Although its strength ranks last among its peers, it cannot suppress its high appearance. Among the 4 symbols, Bai Ruo loves to use it the most. The pig hyena at level 30 is about 1 adult tall, but the body size of the white tiger is twice that of it, and its level is exactly twice that of it. This is completely a battle of white tiger's unilateral slaughter, not very ornamental. Bai Ruo is busy treating his leg that has been eaten. Chengxian 2077 does not allow players to have their limbs chopped off, as it is a game directly controlled by consciousness, making it easy to bring perception from the game to reality. It is said that during the testing phase of the game, there were situations where testers lost their arms in the game and returned to reality only to find that their arms were unconscious. So later, the game settings were changed to ensure that no matter how much physical damage the player's body is, their perception of it remains unchanged. Just like Bai Ruo's left leg, although only the skeleton is left, if touched by hand, it still feels like touching the skin. This feeling is quite wonderful, like drinking water from an empty cup, feeling like you've been drinking water even though there's no water in the cup. Bai Ruo's ID in the game is Little White Shrimp who doesn't wear OL, and he is a server opening player of the Spirit Drive Master profession. He is given the nickname White Demon Lord. The origin of this nickname is very simple, because Bai Ruo always runs around in the wild with a group of level 100 giant pets, and his appearance is even more high-profile than the villain Demon King in the game, so he is banned as a Demon Lord. Unlike normal players, Bai Ruo only plays games to satisfy his developmental tendencies. She particularly likes large monsters, so she crazily spends money and uses extreme character nurturing techniques to transform the spirit-expelling master who used to summon spirit beasts for battle into a beast tamer, who fights with a group of pets. In the game, players from other professions can only keep 1 pet, while spirit-driving players can have more due to their professional skills, but generally only 2 to 3 pets. So Bai Ruo, who has 7 pets, is like a monster in the game. But she used all her skill points to keep pets, so her strength was extremely poor. She cannot defeat any player who has reached the full level in a 1.1 battle, but she also has an advantage. In group warfare, no player can defeat her. Even if he is the number 1 in the entire server, when encountering Bai Ruo with a group of pets in the wilderness, he only has a chance to go his own way. After spending some time letting the flesh on his legs grow back, Bai Ruo fell back to the ground. Her injuries were severe, with less than 1/10 of her thick blood streaks remaining. But fortunately, she had abundant magical power and used several large healing spells in a row, restoring her body to its original state. Although not a wet nurse profession, her most skilled skills are healing and running away. She relies entirely on her pets for the fight, all she needs to do is hide behind and buff them and be careful to avoid enemy attacks. After recovering, Bai Ruo jumped 2 steps on the grass. She always has a sense of discord, feeling that some places are different from usual. Whether it's the environment or the body, it seems too realistic. A major selling point of the release of Chengxian 2077 is its exquisite visual precision, but Bai Ruo remembers that the game was not so refined as to be able to see internal organs on dead monster corpses. And what happened to the white tiger summoned by oneself? Is it in heat? Why are you constantly rubbing her face with your furry brain bag? Although the fur of the white tiger is very smooth and feels comfortable to the touch, it is really too big. Compared to her pet, it's relatively small, but much larger than Bai Ruo. New books, please provide more support. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Games becoming a reality. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Games becoming a reality. Previously summoned spirit beasts or pets would not stick to their owners like puppies. Bai Ruo was almost unable to breathe when being rubbed by the white tiger, and finally pushed it away forcefully. Looking at its eyes that were even bigger than apples, Bai Ruo was grateful that he didn't have a dog in the real world. She doesn't like creatures without boundaries. If she wants to have intimate contact, just touch her head, right? However, the soft fur of the white tiger should be of good quality when used to make blankets. Bai Ruo looked around the white tiger, touched its pure white fur, and suddenly rose up, leaping onto the back of the tiger. If we follow the usual situation, white tiger will quickly shake its body and throw white Ruo off its back. Players are not allowed to ride summoning beasts in the game. If they all ride summoning beasts, who would spend money on keeping pets? But Bai Ruo rode steadily up today, and Bai Hu seemed quite happy, lively and jumping, carrying Bai Ruo for a slow jog in circles on the grass under the moonlight. Sure enough, something is not right. Is it possible that the game has undergone a major update in something you don't know about? It's also impossible. Before she went out, she also played online games, which was the same as usual at that time. Bai Ruo touched her chin and recalled, suddenly realizing that she had forgotten something big. Shouldn't she be in the hospital? How did you get into the game? Even if the rescue is not successful, it should still be in the morgue or crematorium. It shouldn't be in Chengxian 2077, that requires special equipment to log in. Is it that kind of situation? The plot of the game of soul-piercing after death. Or, in other words, Bai Ruo recalled the recent rumors that some criminals used brain-in-the-tank technology to confine the victim's consciousness in virtual scenes and broadcast the victim's life status for profit. That is the scene from the old movie, Truman's World, N years ago. I won't encounter that kind of thing myself, will I? Bai Ruo thought carefully and was extremely scared, trying to quit the game. But as she guessed, all functions related to the main system had failed, and no matter how hard she tried, she could not connect with the outside world or detach her consciousness from this world. Only personal and backpack systems can be opened normally. Bai Ruo was constantly troubled, and the white tiger under her suddenly let out a warning low cry towards a tree. A level 60 white tiger is a demon that needs to be guarded against, and its level must be higher than the pig hyena just now. Out of caution, Bai Ruo immediately took out the pure white staff from his backpack. The Radiant Scepter. One of her fairy-level weapons, is her most commonly used staff, which can greatly enhance Bai Ruo's defense. She possesses the convenient skill of Holy Temple, which can provide both defense and healing. And the passive skill that can be obtained by holding it to be immune to one fatal damage, with a cooldown of 1 day. With it, no matter how strong the enemy is, Bai Ruo will not be instantly killed. The grass under the moonlight initially shook slightly, gradually increasing in amplitude, and then the ground began to tremble. The surface suddenly cracked open, and at the location of the grass, a sickle magic spider with a yellow-brown body emerged. There are 8 eyes on the head, level 80. Bai Ruo was startled, wondering which forest he had come from and why he couldn't move and encounter such a powerful monster. The level of monsters cannot be compared to players, and monsters of the same level almost completely abuse players. This is a design made by Chengxian 2077 to encourage players to team up. A player like Bai Ruo who walks on the side of the sword cannot defeat a level 80 sickle magic spider alone. But she is not alone. Bai Ruo calmly formed a seal and summoned a barrier like a wave of water around him. This is Bai Ruo's most commonly used defense skill, Psi Wall, which can only be learned after reaching level 90. Even level 80 monsters take some time to break through. During this period, Bai Ruo had sufficient time to call out his pets. She elegantly opened the personal panel and calmly swiped to the pet interface. The list consists of 7 pets from top to bottom, namely Xianming Python, Xiaoyao, Lingshan Titan. Bu'er, Hell's three-headed wolf. Wangkai, Jintian nine-tailed fox. Xiaoyu, Sanfen twin-headed dragon. Mumu, thunder tyrannosaurus. Lai Lai, and Xiantian nine-tailed white phoenix. Jiu'er. If Bai Ruo points to a little chicken, whoever points to is who. Regardless of which one is on the list, it is her favorite work that can be pulled out to kill all directions. It's just an 80-level sickle magic spider. If she can't defeat it herself, can her pet still not defeat it? Finally, she chose Jiu'er. Jiu'er is considered a bird, and eating insects is considered an extra meal for it. After clicking on Jiu'er's portrait, Bai Ruo moved her fingers to the summoned position as usual. But there should have been a star-shaped button that looked like a bookmark icon there, but now it's gone. The icon for summoning pets is missing. Unable to summon pets. It's a bolt from the blue. Without a pet, Bai Ruo is just a human sandbag. Bai Ruo quickly clicked on other pets to view, but without exception, none of them could be summoned. At this moment, the wall of size shattered, and the sickle magic spider swung its huge double sickles, exceeding its size, towards Bai Ruo. This is one of the skills of the scythe magic spider. This strike ignores defense, and even a hard hit with blood as thick as white will result in a loss of more than half of the health. Even ordinary players can be instantly killed by this strike. Bai Ruo's mind was blank, and this blow was unacceptable to her. She only felt her head buzzing, foolishly staring at the sickle spider whose body completely covered the sky. At this critical moment, the white tiger in the game, who would never take action without issuing commands, actually carried White Ruo to actively avoid the attack of the magic ball. Without a single hit, the sickle magic spider chased closely, and the white tiger jumped left and dodged right, struggling to avoid the attack of the sickle magic spider. But it has no intention of escaping or attacking, just running in circles. Are you waiting for your own command? Bai Ruo finally regained his composure and made two special seals in a row, summoning the vermilion bird and green dragon from the four symbols. They can fly, but the sickle spider can't control them. But with their attack power, it is almost impossible to defeat the level 80 sickle magic spider, so they can only escape. Bai Ruo patted the back of the white tiger and jumped up from it. The vermilion bird rushed under her in time to catch her and quickly flew up high. At the same time, Qinglong grabbed the white tiger and rose into the air, closely following Bai Ruo. One person and three beasts ran desperately towards the direction of the rising moon. Just like in the game, Bai Ruo can manipulate the summoned spirit beasts with his mind. But it is completely impossible to replicate this operation in the game, because summoning beasts in the game can only understand basic commands such as attack and defense. So even though it was a very awkward scene, Bai Ruo looked excited. This is simply too exciting. Bai Ruo touched her pounding heart. Chengxian 2077 has never brought her such a realistic experience, which is completely beyond the realm of games that humans can create. At the moment of facing the attack of the sickle spider, Bai Ruo suddenly felt unwilling. After choosing to let go, her life gradually became numb. She was not interested in anything and was busy every day, thinking it was meaningless to live. No one cares about her, and she resists socializing. When she's not working, she spends almost all her time playing games. But now, games have become a reality. What kind of work overtime, what kind of evil brain organization in the tank, all go and get lost. She doesn't care about anything, she wants to start over in this world and be a happy person. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Unexpected Encounters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Unexpected Encounters. Mingbo, we walked too deep. This is the third time Wang Quan has reminded Wang Daming. They have been out hunting for 2 days with 17 people, but only a few wild rabbits have been caught. Bringing back this prey was not enough for the villagers to share, so the leader Wang Daming decided to venture deep into the forest to try his luck. But it has already gone deep enough. Not to mention encountering monsters further inside, they may even lose their direction. In the depths of gloomy forests, a strong miasma will emerge at night, although not highly toxic, it will seriously block the view. Once separated from the main army in the forest, it is basically a dead end, so miasma is very dangerous for them. Damn it, how can you tell them without prey? The rainy season is coming soon, will we starve to death? Wang Daming glared at him. You can go fishing. Fishing. How many people have died? You don't know in your heart. There is a natural lake not far from Wangjia village, with turbid water quality but surprisingly abundant aquatic products. In peak season, everyone can catch enough fat fish to exchange for 3 days of food for a village person on the market every time they go down the net. Every year during this season, they are busy fishing to sell money in the market in exchange for supplies, to get through the long and sickly rainy season that lasts for 2 months. They only enter the forest to hunt after the rainy season, storing wild animal fur and making dried meat in advance for the winter. But this year is different, that lake has been invaded by a snake-shaped monster. Wangjia village tried to catch fish twice, but lost 2 lives. If they have money, they can hire demon hunters in nearby towns. The village only raised 561, which is equivalent to less than 6 taels of silver. The starting price for the adults of the Chengxian is 10 taels of silver, and Wangjia village cannot afford to hire them. Helpless, they could only go hunting in the mountains during periods of prey shortage. Wang Daming's questioning left Wang Quan speechless, but he still gritted his head and said, Uncle Ming, everyone is very anxious without food, but if we continue to delve deeper, our brothers may not be able to go home. The younger generation in the hunting team's village accounted for half of the time. They lacked qualifications and dared not speak at such times. However, their fearful expressions with bare eyes were almost praying to Wang Daming. Watching them, Wang Daming hesitated. Divide into 2 teams, he sighed and said, the little one will go back to yesterday's camp, and the old one will walk for another half day. If we don't come back tomorrow morning, you can go back to the village on your own. Wang Daming left this sentence and silently walked forward. Several older people in the team patted the younger generation's shoulder and quickly followed him, leaving a group of young people looking at each other. Among these young people, Wang is the leader. He is a few years older and has had several hunting experiences. He doesn't want to say what he said today, but this forest really can't be entered anymore. He knew that Wang Daming was risking his life, but rather than risking his life in the forest, Wang Quan would rather gamble his life with the snake that occupied the lake. Let's go back to the campsite. Wang Quan's tone was cold, and he was in a bad mood, as everyone could tell. Therefore, no one dared to provoke him, and they all silently followed his instructions. Their campsite is located at the foot of a mountain, backed by large rocks, with open surroundings. They artificially piled stones in a circle outside and made a simple wall. Wang Daming once boasted that this place had been used for over 30 years, but as far as Wang Quan knew, their Wang family village had only moved here for less than 30 years. After this farewell, I don't know if there's still a chance to see that old man who loves chasing cows again. The younger generation behind suddenly tugged at Wang Quan's clothes, almost causing him to fall out of focus. Before he could get angry, he heard the surprised voice of the younger generation. Brother Wang Quan, there is smoke in our camp. A prominent smoke rose in the direction of the self-camp, and the smoke was too thick. The person who started the fire was a novice. Only the people in their village know about the campsite. Did the village send people to support it? Or is it because they haven't returned for such a long time and feel uneasy, sending someone to find them? Or perhaps something happened in the village. The more Wang Quan thought, the more afraid he became. He swung the wooden stick in his hand, which was used to support anti-slip, and ran towards the campsite. They rushed back to the campsite in a hurry. As soon as they opened the bushes, they saw a young girl standing behind the campsite wall, holding a white sword and wearing a beautiful purple cloak. The girl was watching them cautiously as a tall black-skinned wild boar lay on the ground beside her. Bai Ruo wandered in the forest for a whole 3 days without eating anything or even drinking a sip of water. Chengxian 2077 does not have a hunger setting because the game cannot reproduce the real taste, and eating food can create a huge sense of discord for players. For example, even after taking a sip of watermelon, the taste of coffee and bitter gourd juice mixed together in one's mouth. That's really disgusting to think about. But now Bai Ruo will be hungry, and he is very hungry. It seems that when she was unconscious, she had already been hungry for a long time, which has caused her to lose health due to excessive hunger and dehydration. She was seriously injured at the time, and it was also because of this. Otherwise, with the equipment on Bai Ruo's body and the resistance brought by the high level, that level 30 pig hyena would not have caused her such a serious injury. Fortunately, the damage caused by hunger and dehydration is not a percentage damage, and a fixed amount of damage is not considered a crisis for Bai Ruo, but the hunger in his stomach is too tormenting. She ran around in the deep forest for 3 days before encountering a hyena nearby. When hunting it, I happened to find this rock camp, which was also made of ready-made wood and a water reservoir nearby. There is no reason why it is unnecessary. But before she started decomposing the hyena, the vermilion bird in charge of the guard told her that someone was coming. Bai Ruo met someone in this world for the first time. Before knowing their strength and purpose, she believed it was necessary to hide her identity, so she hastily changed into a warrior costume. Originally, players were not allowed to wear equipment from other professions in the game, but now there is no such setting. Anything that Bai Ruo can take out of his backpack and put on his body can be worn. But the special effects of the equipment cannot be exerted, such as the purple cloak worn by Bai Ruo. The shawl is mainly purple in color, and the material of the hard armor is unknown. The texture is like ceramic, with golden lines painted on the shoulders and chest in the pattern of the other shore flower. Under the hard armor is some soft silk material, and the skirt hem has a pleated style. The long skirt is knee-high. Bai Ruo paired a pair of riding boots inside the skirt and equipped top-notch knee pads at the knees. Holding a top-notch one-handed sword weapon called Shuetsang in his hand. This set of equipment was a useless item that she thought looked good, so she didn't sell it after getting it. Unexpectedly, it came in handy now. Wearing this thing, no matter how you look at her, she looks like a warrior. If the other party fights with her and finds that the warrior has actually summoned a spirit beast, the expression must be very exciting. But Bai Ruo didn't actually want to fight. He disguised himself just to catch the enemy off guard when using his skills to escape. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Wangjia Village. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Wangjia Village. In order to make the game more realistic, players cannot see information about players and monsters in Chengxian 2077, and can only rely on experience to judge from appearance. But the group of people in front of Bai Ruo couldn't tell their identities. They were wearing worn-out linen clothes, with curved swords around their waists. Some carried bows and arrows on their backs, some held spears in their hands, and one held an axe for chopping trees. They say they are villagers, but they also have the equipment of a hunter. They say they are hunters, and those weapons are too unprofessional. The two sides faced off for 10 minutes. Bai Ruo dared not speak first, as if her language were different, her mouth would be exposed. But the other party was completely wary of her, and those people had not moved since seeing her. In the end, Bai Ruo couldn't bear it anymore, thinking that if they came to grab her prey, she would grab a pig leg and run away before fighting. Hey! What are you doing? Bai Ruo tried to be gentle in her tone, so even if the other person didn't understand, she wouldn't think she was cursing. For a long time, the young leader over there spoke back. We are villagers from Wangjia village who come to hunt in the mountains. The place you occupy is our campsite. Wang Quan's legs were trembling as he spoke, as it was the first time he had seen such a young demon slayer. He thought that if Bai were to eliminate demons. I have taken over your territory. I'm sorry, because I'm hungry and want to barbecue some meat. You have a ready-made fire pit here, so I want to borrow it. Bai Ruo was grateful for her ability to communicate with each other, so she didn't want to continue using this place. It's just a fire pit, and she can find another place to dig one herself without much trouble. So she grabbed the hind leg of the hyena with one hand and dragged it away, intending to leave. That. Wang Quan called out to her. What's wrong? I didn't damage your things. Can you give us some wild boar meat? Our village has been very short of food recently, and we haven't harvested anything from hunting these days. Wang Quan's voice grew louder and louder. In games, this is usually the plot of the mission unfolding. After hesitating for a while, Bai Ruo said happily, "Of course I can. I only need a little bit of my stomach, and I can give you the rest. But this is a transaction, and you must provide me with intelligence as a reward." Cutting-edge news. This is the first time Wang Quan has heard someone use this word. But what kind of intelligence would the demon slayer want? He had never dealt with demon hunters before and knew nothing about it. Seeing his concerns, Bai Ruo smiled and added, "Don't worry, it's just some common-sense intelligence. I came from far away and don't understand your situation here. In that case, I can tell you anything." Wang Quan said happily. But he was still standing in place, without any intention of approaching Bai Ruo. Bai Ruo felt puzzled and said, "Aren't you coming over? That pig. Don't worry, I'm dead to death. But it's still moving." Bai Ruo turned around and seemed to have not died completely, so he drew his sword and inserted it into its head. A top-notch weapon can cut iron like mud, and a mere pig's head is effortless. I'm dead now. Their current location is at the boundary of the danger zone of the gloomy forest, which is the boundary of the forest's nighttime malaria. If you go deeper from here, you will enter the range of miasma. Your uncle hasn't come back yet. Do you want me to help you find it? Bai Ruo couldn't help but ask with concern as he saw Wang Quan always looking back at the forest path. May I trouble you? Sure, after all, I am a demon slayer. Bai Ruo learned a lot of knowledge about this world from Wang Quan's mouth, and also disguised himself as a demon slayer. This identity is very useful and can earn a lot of money. There is a difference between money in this world and what Bai Ruo perceives. The gold coins commonly used in games are extremely rare in this world. If Bai Ruo had taken out billions of gold coins from her backpack, she might have jumped to become the wealthiest person in the world. But this kind of publicity is something that Bai Ruo wouldn't do, and gold coins have other more important values. In the game, coins are still an important medium for synthesis. Whether it's equipment or herbs, all props need to cost coins to be synthesized. So since gold coins have become limited consumables, Bai Ruo wouldn't spend it on eating, drinking, and having fun. In that case, she needs an identity that is convenient for making money. Then I'll go back. Bai Ruo grabbed his sword and slowly plunged into the forest. When Wang Quan told Bai Ruo that his uncle and his group were heading deeper into the forest, Bai Ruo had already ordered the nearby green dragon to search. Now Qinglong is guarding those lost people. As long as she goes over and brings those people back, the commission can be easily completed. Although there is no money as a reward, it is still good to have some reputation. And Bai Ruo urgently needs a place to settle down now. Unlike games, the Real Forest is humid and hot, causing Bai Ruo to feel sticky and sour. She can't bear it anymore. Besides, she is still wearing a shawl now, and the situation is even worse. As long as she brings back Wang Daming and others, she is still qualified to stay in their village for a few days. Bai Ruo's plan went smoothly, but it took longer than she had imagined. After successfully bringing back Wang Daming and others to transport the pig hyena back to the village with them, Bai Ruo was almost vomited by the smell on his body. She stayed in the forest for at least half a month. Bai Ruo lay in the bathtub, brushing the sticky dirt on his body over and over again. She speculated that she might have been soaked in the rain several times before waking up, otherwise she wouldn't have been marinated so tastefully. Dong dong dong. She was taking a serious shower when suddenly someone knocked on the door. Who is it? Sister Bai, I'm Duor. I've brought you clothes. Duor is the granddaughter of the village chief of Wangjia village. Bai Ruo is currently residing at the village chief's house, and they have arranged for Duor to be fully responsible for taking care of her. You come in. Bai Ruo doesn't care about being seen by the same sex, and the other person is only a 12-year-old child. Duor is not tall, only about 1.3 meters, because there is no comparison among her peers. Bai Ruo also doesn't know if she is short or if the girls in this world are developing slowly. As soon as she entered the door, she couldn't help but frown. Although it was only for a moment, Bai Ruo still saw her. This made Bai Ruo very injured, and Duor clearly smelled the scent on her body. I've been in the forest for too long, Bai Ruo awkwardly smiled. If it weren't for the small size of the bathtub, she would be ashamed to retract herself. I know, my dad and his friends always smell like this when they come back, Duor said, realizing that it wasn't a good thing to say. She immediately said, there are petals that can enhance the fragrance. I'll go get them for you. And that kind of good thing. Well, it's done every year in the village and sells well in the city. Selling money. Is it okay to use it for me? It's okay, Grandma said my sister is a distinguished guest and she wants to give her the best things to use. Duor said as she dug out a bamboo basket with a lid from the cabinet next to the bathroom. The basket was wrapped in layers of cloth, and the innermost part contained what Duor called dried flowers. That is indeed a charming aroma, like the combination of roses and osmanthus, but the floral aroma is too strong. Bai Ruo had originally planned to grab some, but Duor poured a basket of flowers into the bathtub in one go. She still didn't know where to find the sponge-gourd ladle, rolled up her sleeves, and rubbed it onto Bai Ruo. Well. Do you really have such a bad smell? After taking a bath, if the whole person is confused and her skin is rubbed red, she dare not cry out for pain. Her hair was also pulled down a lot by Duor, but there was no way they had stuck together. Bai Ruo always felt that Duor was full of anger throughout the whole process, so she dared not speak up, but she knew that Duor's anger was not directed at her, but towards the taste on her body. After bathing herself, she showed a brilliant smile of great achievement. It seems that he is proud to say. Look, pickled Chinese cabbage can be washed without sour taste. New book, please support more, end of this chapter. Chapter 5. Demon Eliminator. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Demon Eliminator. After mixing into the village for 2 days, Bai Ruo quickly established good relationships with the villagers. When creating the character, Bai Ruo spent a lot of energy pinching her face, but now she is a down-to-earth beauty. Although she deliberately dressed up in a neutral style before coming here to avoid being overly eye-catching, her good foundation cannot be hidden. And Bai Ruo also helped the villagers treat their illnesses free of charge. She found that a small healing technique can cure most of the problems caused by falls and injuries in the world, which means it can easily cure external injuries. But due to internal reasons, there is nothing magic can do about the illness. In return, the villagers provided her with food, shelter, and various intelligence. Wangjia village is located in the northern part of Lingua and is under the jurisdiction of a town called Huangshi town, which is 30 miles away. Huangshi town is the busiest place within 100 miles. But because this entire area is vast and sparsely populated, the most densely populated town of Huangshi has a resident population of less than 20,000. Small villages like Wangjia village with only a dozen households are quite common in this area. Bai Ruo asked the villagers about some famous cities and miraculous attractions from Chengxian 2077, but they had never heard of them at all. However, the villagers know some of the common beasts and monsters in the game. Although their names are different, the appearance of the beasts they describe is almost identical to what Bai Ruo has seen. There are also legends about immortals, as well as some fairyland mountains. However, Bai Ruo has never heard of any of the immortal mountains they listed. It can be confirmed that this world has a certain degree of similarity with Chengxian 2077, at least the ecosystem is relatively close. But the level of civilization is not as prosperous as the settings in the game. Chengxian 2077 simulates the level of civilization during the Tang and Song dynasties. Although it incorporates many creative ideas from designers, the overall framework of the environment is based on that era. In the game, even remote villages will not fall into such a situation where roofs need to be repaired every month. But it may also be because this place is remote, which is an exception. Other bustling cities may be as beautiful and rich as Bai Ruo remembers. As for the spiritual kingdom that governs this place, Bai Ruo can be certain that it is not a country in Chengxian 2077. This disappointed Bai Ruo a bit. She had expected the environment of the world to be exactly the same as that in the Immortal 2077. In that case, she would have a place to go. In Chengxian 2077, there is a place called Luo Cliff on the east side of the mainland. That used to be the location of Bai Ruo's sect, and Bai Ruo also had a private cave there, which contained many of Bai Ruo's good things. In the game, that cave is her home. If she can find it there, she can get enough living security and no longer have to worry about safety issues. Security is very important because we don't know if we can resurrect it. Bai Ruo currently lacks a sense of security mainly because the pets she relies on are not around. The food in the village was a little worse than Bai Ruo had imagined. At noon, there were only some coarse grains and porridge made from the meat of pig hyenas. Pig hyenas are not ordinary wild boars, they belong to monsters rather than beasts. The difference between monsters and beasts is that the former has special abilities, which, according to the game, is that monsters come with special skills. The meat of the pig hyena is more tasteful than that of the wild boar. It's okay to roast it, but porridge is really disgusting. But even Duoer was not picky, so Bai Ruo naturally dared not complain. She always manages to finish it, but there is still this in the next meal. She wants to stay in the village for a few more days. If she eats this all at once, she will have to vomit. It's better to go to the lake and chop down that snake so that the villagers can continue fishing. Fish is no better than this thing. So Bai Ruo took the initiative to go to the lake to meet the snake-shaped monster for a while. Bai Ruo's proposal instantly brought joy to the villagers. They probably discussed this matter before, but were too embarrassed to speak up, so when Bai Ruo took the initiative to kill the snake monster, they immediately arranged a team to accompany him. The main members are still Wang Quan and Wang Daming, but the younger generation who went this time is relatively few. The location of the lake is a distance from the village, and it takes an hour to walk. During this period, Bai Ruo has been thinking about what reasons are suitable to support the villagers. Snakes have good water properties, and snake-shaped monsters generally have similar abilities. In that case, once it escapes into the water, Bai Ruo has no choice but to take it, she can't swim at all. If the villagers are not around, she can still summon Qinglong and Xuanwu to catch the snake in the water, but if the villagers are around, she cannot let the 4 elephants come out. Because no demon slayer can summon spirit beasts. According to the intelligence Bai Ruo learned, there is no such thing as spirit beasts in this world. All non-human powerful creatures are collectively referred to as monsters, standing on the opposite side of the human race. In legend, only characters like the Demon King and Witch can drive monsters. That is to say, if someone discovers that Bai Ruo can drive the spirit beast, she is likely to be labeled as a witch. If the rumors spread widely, there might even be someone specifically coming to attack her. Thinking about it can be a headache, so unless it's an emergency, she won't let the 4 elephants appear in front of people. Is that the lake you mentioned earlier? Bai Ruo pointed to a nearby lake and asked. This lake is not big, but the color of the water is very dark. Just a glance shows that it must be connected to an underground river, and the upstream inflow is much larger than the downstream outflow. Yes, that big snake is inside the lake. As soon as we go fishing, it will attack us, Wang Daming said in a mournful tone. The two people who died in the lake were both brothers who grew up with him since childhood. I see, then you guys go back. I can't do well with you here. You can't help me much, but instead become a burden to me. Bai Ruo spoke very ruthlessly. She had already talked about it, but Wang Daming and others looked at each other and could only turn back. Bai Ruo stood still, waiting for them to leave his living perception range. Living creature perception is a special skill that can only be mastered by Bai Ruo's professional spiritual drive master, which can sense the movements of all living creatures within the range. The level of detail in sensing the behavior of living creatures varies depending on the range chosen when activating the skill. She can only perceive the number and approximate location of the villagers, as well as the direction they are currently moving, if she expands the range of perception of living creatures to the maximum. At the same time, there is information about other living creatures around, such as birds on trees and fish swimming in lakes. If the size is too small, it will be ignored, while powerful monsters will be given special attention. If the plan is successful, then let's start working. Bai Ruo clapped his hands and walked to the lake, pinching a seal and summoning Xuanwu. Xuanwu is a spirit beast with cold ice attributes, with a lower turtle and a higher snake. Although the game setting makes it a bit regrettable that the two cannot be separated, its flexibility in water is very good. As soon as Xuanwu appeared, he immediately burrowed into the lake. Bai Ruo had already locked in the strongest monster in the lake with his perception of living creatures. According to the villager's description, Bai Ruo estimated the level of the snake monster to be around level 20, and Xuanwu's strength at level 60 could easily subdue it. Sure enough, not long after, Xuanwu swam back to the shore dragging a large snake. The snake's waist is as thick as a bucket, and its head is larger than Bai Ruo's. Opening its mouth to easily swallow Bai Ruo is not a problem. The big snake has been frozen to death by Xuanwu, and its head is still covered in ice debris. Oh my! I forgot when they came back. Bai Ruo suddenly remembered this serious problem. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Accidental Accidents. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Accidental Accidents. Sister Bai, your taste today is even worse than yesterday's. Duoer uncovered the scar in Bai Ruo's heart without concealing it, causing Bai Ruo's already fragile little heart to drip blood crazily. She doesn't want to either. It's easy for her to drag such a big snake back to the village alone. Although most of the journey was spent as a laborer by a white tiger. She threw the snake onto the open space in the village, but just wanted to show off and kicked the snake's head. Who would have thought that this foot could kick the snake's venomous sac out? She was splattered all over with venom, but fortunately the snake venom was not very strong, it just smelled foul. Haha. Bai Ruo was speechless and could only fake a smile to conceal her embarrassment. You look so good, you need to pay attention to your image, Dora said in a tone similar to that of a young adult. Unexpectedly, this was really a pure accident. What about last time? It was also an accident. So many accidents happened to you, Duoer complained while patiently helping her rub her hair. The village was bustling with activity, and a large fire was set up, claiming that the big snake was going to be roasted and eaten. Bai Ruo admires their courage and appetite from the bottom of his heart. Most monsters are very unpleasant to eat, and this monster has even eaten their companions. If it were for Bai Ruo, he would definitely not be able to swallow it. But each of them knows how to eat, and Dora is no exception. It is said to be a tradition passed down, where any prey killed must be eaten. Bai Ruo couldn't say anything. She had already self-awareness, so when she came back, she brought a few more fish and had already begged Wang Quan to help her with it. If nothing unexpected happens, she can enjoy the delicious grilled fish after taking a shower. But if there is no accident, there must be an accident. While Bai Ruo was getting ready to take a shower, a mournful cry suddenly came from outside the village. Lamentations followed one after another, and those who listened were filled with fear. Bai Ruo didn't care about being dignified and appropriate. He jumped out of the bathtub and casually put on his clothes, holding his sword and pulling duo as he ran out. I bumped into the village chief who came to find him at the door. What happened? Bai Ruo asked urgently. Poisoned, all poisoned, snake meat poisonous. Wangjia didn't finish her sentence, and she spat out a mouthful of black blood. She grabbed Bai Ruo's hand and fell down, murmuring, "Help take care of duo." Before Bai Ruo could use the treatment, she had already lost her breath. Looking around, the village was already in chaos, with many people lying on the ground. Some of them were still howling for a second, but the next second they lost their breath. The scene was extremely terrifying, making Bai Ruo's hair stand on end. She was momentarily lost, unsure of what to do. Duo suddenly went crazy and ran towards the place where the snake meat was roasted, and Bai Ruo immediately understood Duo's intention. Hurry up and hug her, let her struggle or even bite Bai Ruo's hand, and Bai Ruo won't let go. She was unable to save the others and couldn't let Duo have any more trouble. Everything happened too quickly. If she could have discovered the venom of snake meat earlier, she might have been able to use healing spells to save people, but it was too late. Bai Ruo's perception of living creatures told her that there were no living people in the village except for her and Duo. And Duo's condition quickly became very bad. Duo struggled in Bai Ruo's arms for less than half a minute before her body quickly softened. She has purple lips, rapid breathing, and symptoms of poisoning. But she has never eaten snake meat. Bai Ruo's gaze fell on the snake monster grilled on the fire. The villagers did not cut the snake meat into pieces, but instead peeled it and baked the whole section over the fire. The snake meat was roasted in high heat, emitting green bubbles, with one section of the snake meat emitting particularly many bubbles. Bai Ruo took 2 or 3 steps and swung his sword to cut the piece of meat in half. In the center of that snake meat lay a dark green bead the size of a finger, which was constantly releasing toxic gas under the scorching fire. Turns out it's not venomous snake meat, it's this bead inside the snake's body. Bai Ruo quickly picked out the bead from the fire with his sword and rushed back to Duo's side. He pinched a knot in his left and right hands and activated the healing spell, Little Healing, and the negative state clearing spell, Little Purification, respectively. 2 spells immediately took effect, and Duo's face improved slightly, but the symptoms of poisoning still persisted. In games, there may also be situations where these skills are ineffective, indicating that the level of negative states is higher than that of purification spells, and higher level purification spells must be used to clear them. Chengxian 2077 divides spell levels based on the player's level. Players can only learn small level spells before level 30, medium level spells before level 60, and large level spells before level 90. Only after reaching level 90 can one learn the highest level spell in the game, Immortal Law. Learning more advanced spells requires consuming more skill points. Skill points are obtained as players level up. Bai Ruo spends a large amount of skill points on cultivating pets, while also balancing defense, escape, and healing. She doesn't even know advanced negative state clearing spells. In the past, when encountering such situations, she relied on Xiantian Jiuwei and Baifeng Jiuer, but now Jiuer is not by her side. The 4 elephant spirit beasts she can summon do not have the ability to detoxify. Bai Ruo frantically rummaged through her backpack, sweeping through items one by one. After almost flipping through the backpack, she finally found a top-notch staff that could come in handy. Chengxian. The special skill, Chengxian Mingxian, of Chengxian can relieve all negative states on the target. Equipment above the top level will come with a special skill, which is only second in effectiveness to immortal level skills. If even special skills cannot eliminate snake venom, Bai Ruo really has nothing to do. A bright white light burst out from the staff, enveloping Duor. Her body, which had been constantly convulsing, gradually calmed down under this light. Not long after, Duor woke up and her face returned to its original state. But her emotions were still very excited, and she threw herself on Bai Ruo with tears pouring down her face, crying out loud. The night falls without understanding the human heart, as usual. In the pitch-black night, only the desperate cries of the young girl continue to echo. Bai Ruo quietly watched over Duor until she cried tired, hungry, and fainted. She then picked up the girl and gently placed her on the bed in the room. She came to the fire alone, collected the dark green bead that had brewed tragedy in a sealed box, and put it into the backpack system. Using props to summon a strong wind, it dispersed the poisonous gas in the village. She arranged the corpses of the villagers together and washed their remains one by one. Feeling powerless, she pounded Bai Ruo and looked at the faces that were still lively and enthusiastic not long ago. Without realizing it, tears streamed down her face, and she fell to the ground in despair. Bai Ruo made a mistake in judging the difference in physical fitness between himself and the villagers. She is a level 100 spiritual cultivator, and her body's various attributes and resistance are incomparable to ordinary people. For her, things with low toxicity are already deadly when placed on ordinary people. If she hadn't hunted that snake or dragged the snake monster back, perhaps tragedy wouldn't have happened. If the villagers were to grill that snake, her attitude could be stronger. Unfortunately, there is no such thing as if. New book, please support more, end of this chapter. Chapter 7. Huangshi Town. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Huangshi Town. The arrival of the rainy season is unexpected. The dirt road, which was already driven by livestock and wooden carts, turned into a puddle of mud in such a long and rainy weather. Even the cows' hooves occasionally slipped on this road, and Bai Ruo and Duor almost fell off the cows' backs several times. Duor was wearing a thick raincoat, but the rain still wet her clothes. There are still more than 10 miles from Huangshi Town here, so if this continues, they may not be able to make it to the town before dark. Cow, don't you want it either? Bai Ruo asked Duor's opinion in a low tone. But Duor remained in the same state during this period. No matter what Bai Ruo said, she just nodded. Encountering such a blow, anyone would feel heavy-hearted. During this period, Bai Ruo and Duor personally buried the villagers and went door to collect their relics. Those who were not valuable were buried with them, while those who could sell were wrapped in thick cloth. Bai Ruo planned to sell them in the town and leave them for Duor's future expenses. Since then, Duor has been quiet and obedient to Bai Ruo in everything. The more obedient she is, the more uncomfortable Bai Ruo feels in her heart. She wished Dora could be more capricious, even if she got angry, insulted, or blamed her. But Dora didn't, she just kept following her quietly. Bai Ruo jumped off the back of the cow, stepped into the mud with his white shoes, and was immediately wrapped in a layer of black and yellow. She lifted Duor off the back of the cow and lifted her hand to release her biological control over the cow. This is a skill that can dominate lower-level creatures, and it is a special skill that can only be learned by players of the spirit-driving master profession. After being released from his dominant state, the old water buffalo looked at Bai Ruo in great confusion. "You're free now, go find a place where you won't be caught and live." Bai Ruo patted the buffalo's neck and jumped onto the nearby tree top with Duor on his back. She excels in lightness skills in the game and is a well-known escape master in the industry. After arriving in this world, she conducted many experiments on her abilities, and except for the disappearance of her pet which greatly troubled her, her other abilities were not greatly affected. Carrying Duor on her back, she can also easily use those lightness skills. They quickly advanced towards Huangshi Town along the trees on the roadside. This trip has no purpose, it's just that instead of staying in the village and feeling sad in vain, Bai Ruo wants Duor to come out and take a walk. The muddy and long road seems endless, with gloomy weather and endless rain, each of which makes one feel depressed. In this atmosphere, Bai Ruo couldn't find any topic and just kept running forward. "Sister Bai." Door behind her suddenly called her, which startled Bai Ruo and almost caused him to fall off the treetop. Duo hasn't spoken for a long time. After Bai Ruo stood firm, he pretended to be calm and asked, "What's wrong?" "There's someone there." Duo pointed to a small path not far away. A group of people wearing black clothes are riding horses, heading away from Yellowstone Town. The road was muddy, and one horse slipped. Others were waiting not far away for the horse to get up on its own. Standing beside the fallen horse was a burly man wielding a whip and fiercely whipping the horse's back. There was still a girl lying at the man's feet, not wearing anything waterproof. The clothes were very thin and shrunk into a ball, unsure of whether they were alive or dead. "Do you want to save that girl?" Bai Ruo asked Duo softly. Duo glanced at Bai Ruo and then turned to look at the situation over there. Until the man over there pulled the horse up and threw the fallen girl onto the horse's back, Dor nodded and said, "I want to save her." "Okay." Bai Ruo put Duo down from her back and let her sit on the branch. "Then you hide here and catch her, I'll go and rescue her." Whether or not Bai Ruo can save the person is actually uncertain in her heart, but it is rare to be asked by Duo like this. Bai Ruo wants to give it a try, perhaps this can become an opportunity to resolve Duo's knot. The pedestrian had already resumed their journey, but the horse couldn't walk fast on the muddy road. Bai Ruo caught up with them with just a few attempts at the treetops. But Bai Ruo was not in a hurry to take action. She was not good at fighting people head-on, and if she summoned the 4 elephants, she was worried that they would panic and harm the girl. So she decided to launch a surprise attack. Among Bai Ruo's many escape skills, there is a displacement skill called Wangjia, which is a large-level spell that can only be learned after reaching a level of 90. At this distance, if the other party has not yet discovered her, it indicates that her strength is not above that of Bai Ruo, and therefore she cannot defend against Wangjia. She made a knot with one hand, and in the next moment, her figure suddenly appeared behind the man in black at the end of the line. She was still in the air, so she grabbed the man's arm and threw him off the horse's back. At the same time, he used his strength to land himself on the back of a horse and grabbed the girl who was almost implicated in falling. Immediately after, she activated the second stage of her skill Wangjia and returned to her position before departure. This is the excellence of Wangjia as a top-level escape spell, as it always has one more choice than other displacement skills. The man who was knocked to the ground let out a scream, which made the people in front of the line turn around. At first, they thought it was a horse that had fallen again, until they found the girl on the horse's back missing, and then hurriedly scattered around to find someone. But Bai Ruo had already returned to Duo's side. She carried one in front and one on her back, continuing towards Huangshi town in the heavy rain. The injured girl's life was worry-free, but she had a fever due to the cold. Bai Ruo used a small healing technique on her, restoring her vitality 7 or 8 times. But she was still sleeping soundly because her fever belonged to illness, and illness could not be cured by skills. We still need to find a doctor for her. Huangshi town is like a stone city in the rain. A towering wall made of stones, irregular but with a strong sense of heaviness. 2 watchtowers were built on the inner side of the wall, one on the left and one on the right of the city gate, which protruded from the wall and matched with the pitch-black city gate, resembling a small stone demon. Or just like a little rock demon with a dying expression, who ate soy sauce mixed with ice cream and topped it with matcha-flavored curry dessert. Bai Ruo walked to the city gate and looked up and shouted twice to open the door. Her voice was swallowed up by the sound of rain, and no one responded to her. Because saving someone delayed some time, it is now time to close the city gate. Unless there are special circumstances, the city gate will not open and will have to wait until the next morning. Let's climb over the wall, Bai Ruo is planning like this. With her proficiency in lightness skills, she easily led 2 girls over this less than 5-meter-high wall. But when she decided to turn around and look for a secluded corner to climb over the wall, the thick city gate suddenly slowly pushed open from inside. Bai Ruo took a step and made way for the space where the city gate was pushed open. The city gate in her memory has always been opened inward, and this design can avoid the situation of being blocked and the city being sealed off. But the door of Huangshi town surprisingly opens outward. The door opened a gap that allowed one person to pass, and a soldier in a military uniform came out of the door. He looked up and down at Bai Ruo, and then his gaze fell on Duoer standing next to her and the girl Bai Ruo was holding in her arms. "What person?" he asked. "The people of Wangjia village have encountered a crisis in the village, so we are here to seek refuge," Bai Ruo answered straightforwardly. "Is it in your arms too?" Bai Ruo draped his raincoat over the girl in his arms, but he could still tell at a glance that she was not walking with Bai Ruo and others. The girl was very embarrassed and clearly had just died. "She was saved by me on the way and fell into the rain. She has a fever, can we let her go to the clinic first?" "A clinic? There's no such place." The soldier's tone suddenly became cold and sharp. "According to the rules, you can't come in, but you're in a difficult situation with 2 children. Maybe you can open up and I'll go report it." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Medical Clinic. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Medical Clinic. After he finished speaking, he closed the city gate again, and Bai Ruo stood there waiting for a while without any sound coming from inside. "You should still climb over the wall, maybe you have already found the clinic." Bai Ruo thought regretfully. She remembered the soldier guarding the door earlier saying that the city soldiers did not have a medical clinic. The medical clinic is a common facility in Chengxian 2077, which can help players without healing methods recover their health for a fee. So Bai Ruo naturally believes that there are also places like medical clinics here. Even without a medical clinic, there should be other places where doctors can save people. Judging from the tone of the soldier's voice just now, it seems that there is not even a place to treat people's illnesses in Huangshi town. She waited for a while longer, but there was still no movement inside the door. Bai Ruo became impatient and wanted to let go of the defending soldier and climb over the wall himself. She turned around and walked back, holding Duoer, and looked up to see a group of people and horses approaching from not far away. Judging from his physique, he was a sturdy adult man wearing a silver-white armor. If it were under the moonlight, it would definitely be an extremely beautiful and dazzling armor, but now the rain has covered it with a thick layer of gray, making it look very destitute. The top of the man's helmet has a cluster of feathers from a certain bird that is 30 centimeters long, but a few of them are folded in the middle, like a withered flower. The silver knight held a red tassel spear in his hand, lying horizontally on the horse's back, and swayed towards the city gate at the slow pace of the horse. He looks completely defeated. The city gate was opened again, and this time both sides of the gates were pushed open. 6 soldiers holding long spears emerged from the door, lined up left and right to welcome them at the city gate. One of them was someone that Bai Ruo had just met, and he was gesturing for Bai Ruo to hurry into the city. So it was solved in this way. Bai Ruo resists the desire of roast and quickly leads Duoer into the city when he is in the light of others. Inside the city gate is a main road that leads directly to the town center, with a straight stone paved road surface. The buildings at its end cannot be seen clearly in the rain, only a red building can be seen. On both sides of the avenue are many residential buildings, not like civilian ones, which have undergone many renovations that are only needed for urban defense. There were no pedestrians on the street, and the entire town seemed like a dead city in the pouring rain. Where should we go? Bai Ruo was at a loss and froze in place. There are no people nearby who can inquire about the news, the only living people are those soldiers. Let's ask them after they finish their work. There is no other way, Bai Ruo can only wait on the roadside. The Silver Knight's horse, swaying step by step, finally entered the city. Bai Ruo is waiting for him to leave, so he can come forward and inquire about intelligence with the soldiers. But the Silver Knight seemed to have misunderstood Bai Ruo's meaning. Seeing Bai Ruo constantly looking at her, he actually dismounted and walked towards Bai Ruo with his gun. Mind him, asking who is not asking. As soon as Bai Ruo approached, he would first ask, "Where can I get treated in the city?" But she didn't think about this question and froze the Silver Knight, standing still with a deep gaze. He has a mature appearance, but his skin is delicate, estimated to be less than 30, and a pair of thick eyebrows is the reason why he looks older. The kind-hearted soldiers who had just hinted at Bai Ruo entering the city rushed over, as if he thought Bai Ruo was in conflict with the Silver White Knight. As soon as he came over, he bowed to the Silver Knight and reported in a low voice, "Lord Ziyuan, they are from the Wang family village. They said they came to seek refuge in the village due to an incident." "What happened?" Ziyuan looked at Bai Ruo. His voice was unexpectedly green, creating a strong contrast with his mature appearance. "I accidentally ingested a poisonous monster, and everyone is gone. We're here for shelter, hoping you can tell me where to treat the illness. The girl in my arms has a fever and needs to take medicine." Bai Ruo briefly explained that when she said these words, she noticed that Duoer's head was lowered a bit, and couldn't help but feel a pang of heartache. The soldier answered on behalf of Ziyuan, "There are no more people in the city who can cure illnesses. No more. He died of his own illness, and the doctor cannot heal himself. No one can save him." The soldier's tone was as indifferent as before. No wonder when Bai Ruo asked, Ziyuan would have that expression on his face. He should be a prominent figure in the city, feeling guilty for not being able to save the people. Bai Ruo lowered his head for a moment of contemplation, then looked up and said seriously, "Can I temporarily stay at the doctor's clinic? I can treat some diseases." "Do you know how to treat illness?" Ziyuan and the defending soldiers exclaimed in surprise almost simultaneously. "I know some small spells that can cure minor ailments, and I also have some knowledge of pharmacology." "Enough. Enough." Ziyuan was overjoyed and instructed the defending soldiers, "Hurry up and escort the girl to the Lin family clinic. I'll go report to the prince. Obey me." The defending soldiers surrounded Bai Ruo and others in the middle, as if picking up treasure, and walked along the main road in the city to a hospital. This medical clinic has some ideas. The wood is old, the door is closed, and the "Wonderful Hand Revival" plaque on it has faded. "Lin Zhu, how can you open the door without a key?" one of the soldiers asked the kind-hearted soldier. Lin Zhu didn't respond and kicked the wooden door open with just a few kicks. After opening the door, he said, "I'll come back and ask my aunt for the key." "Let's come in now." "Why did you take the key when you kicked it out?" Bai Ruo couldn't resist roast. "That's right, then don't take the key. Please come inside, girl." Lin Zhu walked ahead, familiar with the medical clinic. He used his hands to sweep away the dust on the table and stool, and found a place for Bai Ruo to lie down with the girl in his arms. The temperature on the girl's body is very high, but fever is not a negative state. If Bai Ruo can treat her to restore vitality, she cannot change the symptoms of fever. She can only be cooled down by physical means first, and then find some herbal medicines that can reduce fever for her to drink. Bai Ruo asked Lin Zhu to bring dry clothes and asked Duoer to boil hot water. She wiped the unconscious girl's body, changed into dry clothes, and covered her forehead with a damp towel to ensure that the temperature on her head was not too high. After completing the emergency response, she stood aside others, summoned the backpack system, and took out a medicinal gourd and a book from inside. Medicine gourd is a storage item that can store a large amount of pills and keep them from expiring. The medicinal gourd that Bai Ruo took out contains the Spring Revival pill. The introduction to it in the game is a spiritual formula that can cure diseases with medicine, made by famous physicians. It can be used to treat both injuries and cold and hot diseases. In the game, it is the most basic therapeutic drug, but since the instructions mention that it can treat diseases, Bai Ruo wants to try it out to see if it can be cured. The book that Bai Ruo took out is the Compendium of Materia Medica. Chengxian 2077 adopts many real-world settings, such as the herbs in the game having prototypes in real life. This Compendium of Materia Medica is a product that replaces real herbs with herbs from games. Game developers have improved and simplified real-life books by authoritative experts, and restored them into the game. Although it cannot be used to treat illnesses in the game, Bai Ruo bought it if he found it interesting. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. By Family Medical Center. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 9 By Family Medical Center. Bai Ruo searched for everything that could be used. After feeding a reviving pill to the unconscious girl, she asked Duoer to take care of her and search for the necessary herbs in the medicine rack with the Compendium of Materia Medica. This search surprised Bai Ruo greatly. The herbs in the book can actually be found on the medicine shelf. She carefully weighed the medicine using a small scale according to the amount stated in the book, and then followed the instructions step by step to boil it into soup. Because it was too smooth, when the final product was presented to him, Bai Ruo doubted whether this medicine could really be drunk. She first conducted an experiment on herself. But her physique, it is estimated that drinking a bowl of arsenic will not cause anything wrong. We need to find a normal person to try the medicine, but Bai Ruo doesn't want Duoer to take risks. When she was in a difficult situation, hesitating whether to use or not to use a large pot of medicine in front of her, Ziyuan suddenly came to his door. Bai Ruo heard from the gatekeeper Lin Zhu that Ziyuan was a capable general under the command of the Lin Duan prince in Huangshi town, and also the second in command of this city. Not only is he highly skilled in martial arts, but he is also a highly respected figure in the city. Before Lin Zhu and others left, they also said that if there were any important matters that were indecisive, they could seek General Ziyuan's help. This is quite a coincidence. As soon as Ziyuan entered the room, he saw Bai Ruo squatting on the ground, looking at the pot of medicinal soup in front of him with a worried expression. Why does the girl have a worried expression? No one tried the medicine for me, I drank it myself, but it didn't work. What does it mean to be useless? I have a special physique, you can consider me invincible. Ziyuan was surprised. He had never heard of anyone who could withstand all kinds of poison. But he was also a person who had seen the world before, and instead of asking for details, he asked, "Does that girl want me to test the medicine on her behalf?" Bai Ruo suddenly looked up and waited for this sentence. But in terms of expression, she needs to be more reserved and play it easy to get. If it's toxic, you might die. Ziyuan confidently said, "I am strong and not in any way." Bai Ruo smiled and said, "That's great. I added 3 sparse herbs inside. Sanshi Chow is a famous poison in the game, and accidentally eating it can lead to human life." Ziyuan clearly had heard of this poison, and his face suddenly changed. Sanshi Chow is still. Bai Ruo smiled brightly and said, "Of course I lied to you." She changed her tone and said, "But if you're so strong, eating a plant of 3 sparse grass won't be a problem, right? It's sweet." Ziyuan took a deep breath. Strong body, not abnormal body. Let's forget about Sanshi Chow. I don't have the good physique of a girl, so I'll just drink this. Ziyuan squatted down, scooped out a spoonful of medicine from the pot and poured it into the bowl next to him, then drank it all in one gulp. He patted his mouth twice, squinted his eyes, and said, "It seems sweeter than the medicine I've drunk before. Because I added 3 sparse herbs." Bai Ruo said seriously. Ziyuan. Lie to you, don't show a dying expression. You just sit and observe for a few hours. Bai Ruo stood up and continued to flip through the medicine cabinet, starting to prepare the second type of medicine. There are several more, could you help me try them all by the way? Try mixing them together, won't there be any problems? No, if we eat it together without any poison, then eating it alone will definitely be fine. Indeed. Wait a moment, The rainy season in the north is quite long, so long that I can't remember when the last sunny day was. She, Duoer, and the girl Moo Moo who was snatched back by her stayed together at the Lin family clinic. Bai Ruo, with her book, Compendium of Herbs, and various healing spells that she excels at, helped many people in the city to heal their illnesses free of charge during the rainy season. A common symptom during the rainy season here is chickenpox, which can cause fever, diarrhea, and high mortality rates if left untreated. At first, Bai Ruo had no choice but to rely on treatment techniques to save the patient's life, and then gradually improve the condition through his own resistance. Although this can cure illness, it is very tiring. Bai Ruo often goes out in the morning to renew his life, and can only go home late at night. It was not until later that Duoer and Moo Moo, relying on the records in the Compendium of Materia Medica and the medical records in the clinic, formulated a prescription with significant effects, which liberated Bai Ruo from running around every day. In terms of talent, Duoer is more talented in medicine than Bai Ruo. She can always remember the effects of various herbs and innovatively adjust the proportion of herbs to create drugs that are more suitable for the patient's physical condition. When Bai Ruo was not in the clinic, Duoer was already able to independently treat and prescribe medicine for people. Bai Ruo also intends to cultivate her abilities in this area. As long as she is there, Duoer has enough room for trial and error. Of course, trial and error come from Ziyuan. The most common place for Ziyuan to stay throughout the rainy season is the clinic. He is either trying drugs or treating diseases due to incorrect drug effects. Because I drank too much medicine, I even experienced symptoms of poisoning at one point. But that level of poison can be easily resolved by Bai Ruo's purification spell. Strangely speaking, purification spells can detoxify, but when you're sick, there's nothing you can do about it. Bai Ruo was very puzzled by the principle behind it. With everyone's efforts, the medical clinic has been rebuilt. They stayed in the city until the end of the rainy season, and the sign of the Lin family clinic was changed to the Bai family clinic. Bai Ruo became the owner of this medical clinic and was registered in the Qingzhou prefecture's Zhengba district, which can be considered as settling down. Duoer became a famous young doctor in the clinic. She received accurate medical treatment and learned the essence through observation and inquiry. Integrating the knowledge of human medicine taught by Bai Ruo with the pathology and pharmacy in medical books can not only treat internal diseases, but also perform simple trauma surgeries. Moo Moo became Duoer's assistant, and when she woke up, she lost her memory. It was unclear whether it was due to a fever for too long or being drugged, which caused the sequelae. Even the name Moo Moo was chosen by Bai Ruo for her. She has a good relationship with Duoer. They are of similar age and usually busy around the clinic. Bai Ruo has actually been idle, either wandering around the city every day or finding a place outside the city to experiment with her skills. After the end of the rainy season, there were several days of scorching sun, which made Bai Ruo, who was about to mold, feel like she was about to be sunburned to death. She lazily collapsed on the lounge chair in the backyard of the hospital, fanning herself with a paper fan, one after another. During the rainy season, the expenses of the medical center are all sponsored by the city lord's government, but recently Ziyuan said that the sponsorship is coming to an end and the medical center needs to rely on itself. Bai Ruo had never done any business and did not understand the market trends. She asked Duoer and wanted her to take charge, but was sent back by her two white eyes. That girl is getting more and more aggressive now. I don't know if it's because the patients she receives every day are too difficult to deal with. As long as Bai Ruo is a little disconnected, she will be very aggressive. Because she couldn't think of anything to pay attention to, she just lay here and lay around. The weather in the north after July is cool, and as long as there is no sun exposure, the temperature is quite pleasant. There is still a gentle breeze in the backyard from time to time, which makes Bai Ruo almost fall asleep. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Getting into Debt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Getting into Debt. Let's eat now. A gentle voice came from the ear, a familiar yet unfamiliar feeling that startled Bai Ruo out of her dream. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Duor bending over to look at her. Duor had a bright smile and was wearing a loose white dress, exuding the aura of a doctor's kindness. But the cute appearance of that young girl made Bai Ruo almost roll off the lounge chair in fear. Duor, you're back. Haha, Mumu didn't even come to call me. Bai Ruo stood up strong and calm, giving Duor a chair to sit on. But Dora obviously won't sit, even though this clinic is now counting on her. She just returned from the homes of several herbal vendors in the city. During the rainy season, the medical center consumed a large amount of herbs, which urgently needed to be replenished. The sponsorship from the city lord's mansion has been cut off again, and the expenses of the medical center in recent days have been covered by Duor herself. She spent all the money she brought from the village early on. Bai Ruo heard Mumu say that Duor was already selling valuable vase decorations in the clinic. Hee, it's okay, sister, keep sleeping. If the clinic goes bankrupt, we can also be wandering doctors. Duor whispered softly, with knives all over her. Anyway, following my sister, even if I don't eat or drink, I won't starve to death. Duor once went on a hunger strike for a while, and that's how Bai Ruo treated her. That's why Duor didn't talk to Bai Ruo, and later it evolved into Bai Ruo nodding in agreement with everything she said. That's to say, I've seen through the display and it's rotten. It wasn't until she arrived in Huangshi town and saved Mumu, that she learned medical skills and helped many people, that her knot gradually opened up. So bringing up the old story again is like pricking a needle in Bai Ruo's heart. Bai Ruo couldn't hold on and covered Duor's mouth, pleading for mercy. Wrong, master. Don't worry, I'll go figure out a way now. Even if it's going to rob, I'll bring money back tonight. Don't do anything bad. Duor said, breaking free from Bai Ruo's hand. Be good and don't do anything bad. I still have to come back for dinner. I bought fish. Fish. As soon as I think of you, Bai, I think of what happened that day and feel a stomach ache. I know, I'll go out now. Bai Ruo covered her stomach and grinned as she left the clinic through the back door. After the rainy season, the city gradually became lively, and the pedestrian flow of shops on both sides of Nanbei Street doubled several times. Some nearby villages have started to pull and sell goods to the city. If that tragedy hadn't happened in Wangjia village, Dora might have followed the adults here to sell her homemade dried flowers. Bai Ruo took a few steps and saw someone selling medicinal herbs. There is only one clinic in this city, and in the past, people who bought medicine would directly take their goods to the clinic. But now everyone knows that the Lin family clinic is gone, and the Bai family clinic, which has been replaced by a young doctor with good medical skills, is too poor to afford medicinal herbs. The pharmaceutical farmers who used to have dealings with the hospital can only choose to sell their goods to other towns or sell them directly on the streets like this. Everyone is trying to make a living, and even if they have the intention to help the Bai family clinic, they are powerless. You can't have your own family hungry, wait for others to make money and pay back. The uncle selling herbs suddenly waved and greeted Bai Ruo. He met Bai Ruo once at the clinic, so he remembers her. It's not that Bai Ruo boasted, there are only a few beautiful people like her in the small town, and she is the only one with her extraordinary and refined temperament. Bai Ruo has conducted experiments, and even if she deliberately dresses up like an ordinary person, she still stands out in the crowd like a chicken. This aura seems to be inherent in her high level. Players who reach the full level in the game can obtain the title of becoming immortal, and give themselves a fairy name. Bai Ruo was somewhat disconnected, and everyone called her the White Demon Lord. She decided to use this as a fairy name. So even though they are immortals, they hold the title of Demon Lord. Although it's a bit biased, at least the essence is the same, so it's normal for Bai Ruo to have a bit of immortal energy. Bai Ruo greeted him with a smile and asked, "How is business?" Yuan Damo revealed his yellow teeth and said with a bitter smile, "It's not good, no one bought it. It's like this, who has nothing to buy medicine for." Bai Ruo comforted him, "You better carry the medicine to the Bai family clinic, and I can give you the money soon. The shopkeeper Bai is not looking for me to be happy, is he? What do you think?" Yuan Damao clapped his hands, got up from the ground, carefully collected the medicine placed on the ground, and bowed to Bai Ruo before heading towards the Bai family clinic. As soon as he left, there was also a pharmaceutical farmer nearby. Before he could speak, Bai Ruo said, "You can go too and ask the young doctor if she will accept it. If she does, I will pay. It will be divided into quite a few of yours." "Okay." He responded and suddenly shouted towards a small alley, "The Bai family clinic is rich. Everyone who sells goods and asks for money should go quickly." Bai Ruo was startled and quickly grabbed him, saying, "Forget the seller. What does begging mean? The Lin family clinic owes us a lot of money. What's the matter with the money owed by the Lin family clinic and the Bai family clinic?" Bai Ruo almost shouted out. "Manager Bai, you can't say that. Since you have taken possession of their house inheritance, you should naturally repay the money for them. This." Bai Ruo is speechless. According to legal principles, it is indeed so. What should we do? This group of people are asking for money from their doorstep, and we must not anger Duoer to death. Bai Ruo's head hurts when he thinks about it, so he quickly ran to the pawn shop. She originally had two plans for making money. One is to go to the Imperial Censorate and become a legitimate demon slayer, and wait for someone to come and entrust her to kill monsters and make money. The other is to go to the wilderness for mining. Bai Ruo has inquired with Ziyuan, and there are no relevant laws governing this matter here. With the help of a treasure hunting compass, she can find valuable mines in the wilderness. Then let White Tiger Xuan will mine for her, and Qinglong and Zhuke transport the mines. She can lie down and become a mining boss. But the sudden debt crisis caused all of her plans to go bankrupt. If she can't bring back the money tonight, she'd better not go back either. So after careful consideration, Bai Ruo thought that finding a pawn shop was the quickest way to earn money. There are many valuable items in her backpack, and any one she takes out can sell for a lot of money, even though they are all consumables. Selling one item will result in one less item. But Bai Ruo believes that now is a state of emergency and must endure the pain of cutting off love. She is more afraid of the stomach pain when facing door than the heartache of losing her collection. For the past 6 months, she and Duoer have finally found the most suitable relationship for each other. Bai Ruo treats Duoer as family, and she believes that Duoer also thinks the same way. Bai Ruo has never experienced such a family relationship before, so she cherishes it even more. But their relationship is still a bit off-center. Like reckless and shrewd sisters, Dora is actually a parent who has to worry about everything. There are 2 pawn shops in Huangshi town, one on West Street and the other on East Street. According to Ziyuan, the pawn shop on East Street has some background in the influence of the city lord's mansion. Considering his relationship with the lord's mansion, Bai Ruo decisively went to the shop on East Street. End of this chapter.